On March 29, 2017, as spring was arriving, a second-grade elementary school girl named Yang, who lived in Incheon, was playing with her friends at a park near her apartment after school had ended. A short while later, an adult woman dressed in black, with black hair and black sunglasses, took Yang with her and calmly disappeared into an apartment building. Who was this woman? The more you learn about the identity of the perpetrator, the more shocking this case becomes. It was an incident that shocked the entire nation 7 years ago. This is Brian with Bitter Clues. Here we tell real crime cases from around the world. Now, let today's story begin. Yang was the youngest daughter in her family. She was 6 years old. She had a shy personality and was especially wary of strangers. But she had begun making friends more easily and was bravely attending school without trouble. That day as well, after school ended, Yang was playing with her friends at a park near her apartment. At the time, many elementary school children already carried smartphones, but Yang did not have one. Even so, Yang always found a way. She would borrow a friend's phone whenever she needed to call her mother, especially when she wanted to keep playing after school. That day too, she needed to call her mother. While wondering where she could borrow a phone, Yang noticed an adult sitting in the park. She approached the adult, who was wearing black clothes and sunglasses, and asked, "I need to call my mom. Could I please borrow your phone?" The adult readily agreed and said, "Okay, but my phone's battery is dead right now. My home is right in front of us. Let's go use the house phone." Yang followed the adult. A friend who had been at the park with Yang later remembered the situation like this. "My friend wanted to borrow a phone to ask her mom if she could keep playing. That woman, wearing black clothes and with black hair, pointed over there and said her house was that way." The adult spoke kindly and gently, as if she had known Yang for a long time. This is what the adult looked like. The person the child believed was an auntie. As Yang's friend described, she was wearing black clothes. What stood out was that she was also carrying a travel suitcase. But this person was not an auntie. She was a 16-year-old teenage girl named Kim. Kim took Yang into the elevator, got off on the 13th floor, then walked up 2 more floors and entered her own home on the 15th floor. This elevator footage became the last recorded sighting of Yang. So what on earth happened inside that apartment? As you may have guessed, Kim did not bring Yang home to let her use the house phone. She had claimed her phone battery was dead and brought her along. But in reality, Kim's phone was not turned off at all. It still had battery. She had lied in order to lure the child. The clothes Kim was wearing that day were actually her mother's clothes. Inside her own apartment complex, Kim walked around wearing her mother's clothing, sunglasses, and even carrying a travel bag. It already feels strange and suspicious, doesn't it? So who exactly was Kim, and why did she engage in such strange behavior? Kim had dropped out of high school after experiencing difficulties adjusting. She had received psychiatric treatment in the past. However, neighborhood residents, school club friends, and even private academy teachers all said the same thing. They described her as somewhat unusual, but quite intelligent, and said she did not appear to be suffering from any serious mental illness. Kim was known to have an especially strong interest in comics. Of course, liking comics is not unusual. However, she was also drawn to things that were somewhat strange and disturbing. She reportedly enjoyed watching the American television drama Hannibal, which dealt with psychopaths and contained rather violent and graphic content. The novels Kim frequently read included descriptions of mutilating corpses and cleaning up crime scenes after harming people. She was deeply absorbed in murder and grotesque subject matter. She also read books on human anatomy. At the time, Kim's father was a doctor, and she even posted on social media, giving advice about where and how to cut the human body, making comments related to corpse mutilation. She even wrote, If you're curious about anything, just ask. My father taught me how to do it. He graduated from medical school. Does this look like a normal 16-year-old girl to you? Does she look like the kind of older sister a young child could trust enough to follow into her home? Absolutely not. That day, after Yang followed Kim inside, her family began searching for her. A long time had passed since school had ended, yet Yang had not returned home. Her mother called the school to ask if anything had happened, then contacted the homes of Yang's friends as well. But no matter where she asked, Yang could not be found. Teachers at Yang's school also joined the search. They stayed out late, checking places a child might have gone, combing through alley after alley. Announcements were even broadcast through the apartment security office to each household, saying that a child was missing. But despite all efforts, Yang could not be found anywhere. Then, later that night, at around 10:30 p.m., Yang was finally discovered. But she was not found in the way her family and friends remembered her. On the apartment rooftop, 2 large trash bags, each with a capacity of 2 liters, were discovered. They were not simply left on the rooftop. They were found on top of the water tank roof, a place that required climbing an additional ladder approximately 5 meters high from the rooftop. The child's body had been severely mutilated, and there were clear signs of strangulation around her neck. Who could have done this? Yes, the perpetrator was Kim. To identify the suspect, police began reviewing closed-circuit television footage. As we saw earlier, investigators initially focused on the units on the 13th floor. However, Kim was actually living on the 15th floor. She had acted in such a calculated way to mislead the investigation and create confusion, deliberately moving in a manner designed to avoid suspicion and throw police off her trail. Now, the truly shocking part is only beginning. When police eventually went to Kim's apartment and began their search, they found the home to be impeccably clean. It was so spotless that there was nothing to suggest anything horrific had taken place there at all. But you know the luminol test. It is a method used to detect traces of blood or bodily fluids that cannot be seen with the naked eye. When investigators performed the test, the bathroom was revealed to be completely soaked in blood. Kim had strangled Yang with a charging cable after bringing her into the apartment. She then dismembered the body and placed the remains into plastic bags and food waste bags. Some of them were taken to the water tank roof on the apartment building, as mentioned earlier, while others were thrown into the food waste disposal area. Within just 2 to 3 hours of entering the apartment, she had killed a person, mutilated the body, and cleaned up the scene completely. All of this happened in an astonishingly short amount of time. Carrying 2 heavy bags and climbing a ladder approximately 5 meters high to the rooftop water tank is an extremely difficult task. Yet she managed to do even that. These were acts so horrific and physically demanding that they would be nearly impossible for an average person to carry out, both mentally and physically. And after committing all of this, the next thing Kim did was go out to meet a friend. Casually, almost cheerfully, she carried a single paper bag and headed to Jamsil. Jamsil is a prominent neighborhood in the southeastern part of Seoul in Korea, to meet 2 older female acquaintances she had become close with online. The older girl Kim said she knew was Park, a student preparing to retake college entrance exams whom she had met through a character cafe. According to Park's statement, Kim appeared completely normal that day, no different from her usual self. Earlier, we mentioned that Kim had been carrying a paper bag. What was inside that bag would be revealed shortly. Kim handed the paper bag to Park, but Park said she did not look inside. On her way home, she simply threw it away. Did Park truly not know what Kim had done that day? The two had met through a character cafe. For those unfamiliar with the concept, it may sound strange. A cafe in this context refers to an online community. A character cafe is a space where members create fictional characters and engage in role-playing together, acting according to the roles they have assigned themselves. For example, if the cafe is built around a mafia-themed setting, members take on the roles of mafia members. Naturally, hierarchies form. Some give orders, others follow them. It is essentially a form of shared roleplay within an imagined world. However, this particular cafe did not revolve around wholesome or positive themes. Instead, it focused on grotesque, violent, and gory subject matter. Through their activities in this cafe, the two grew close. Their relationship was described as role-play-based, something similar to a contractual romance or a couple-like dynamic. It is difficult to describe it simply as a romantic relationship, as the unique nature of character cafes and the complexities of adolescence were deeply intertwined. Still, for simplicity, you can think of it this way. Park played a male role, Kim played a female role, and the two interacted as if they were lovers. So what was inside the paper bag Kim had been carrying? Horrifyingly, it contained the finger of 8-year-old Yang. Kim knew that Park had an obsession with fingers. She reportedly decided to harm someone, saying she would obtain a beautiful finger for her. The exact motive behind Kim's crime may be known only to her. But based on these conversations, one can begin to grasp a disturbing glimpse of her mindset. Kim said, "From my apartment balcony, you can see the elementary school playground." Park responded, "Then one of the kids there is going to die. How pitiful. Hee hee." Park later claimed that she had not participated in the crime and that she did not know what was inside the paper bag. However, the two had exchanged messages like these. Kim wrote that she was going hunting, using that expression to mean she was going to lure a child. Later, she sent messages saying, "I caught one. The situation was good. It's a girl." In response, Park replied with messages such as, "Did you check the closed-circuit television? Is she alive? Are the fingers pretty? Give me one as a gift." No further explanation is needed. Park did not fail to understand what was happening. She knew very well exactly what had taken place. She claimed that she thought it was all part of a role-play scenario, that she had simply gone along with Kim's role-play, just like they did in the character cafe, and that the conversations were shared with the understanding that everything was fiction. However, an analysis of their messages showed something different. When the two were engaging in role-play, they used polite speech, but when they talked about harming Yang, they switched to casual speech. Park clearly knew how to distinguish between role-play and reality. Even after the incident, when the investigation into Kim began, Park went as far as asking whether she herself might get involved or implicated. Kim responded by saying she would make sure that Park would not be involved, writing that she would describe it as her own mental problem, and promised that Park would not end up with a criminal record. Park replied by apologizing, saying she was being selfish. Kim then responded saying, "I like you a lot. I'll wait for you. Will you trust me?" The two appeared to be flirting with each other, but the topic of their conversation was the killing of a person. Neither of them was thinking like a normal human being. Here, saying they were not in their right minds does not mean a legal insanity claim or a diagnosed mental illness. It means they were not thinking or behaving in a humane way. But, as many adult criminals do, Kim began shifting blame. First, she blamed others. And who did she blame? Park, the very person she claimed to like so much. Kim stated that about 10 days before committing the crime against Yang, she had received a sudden kiss from Park, and that from that moment, she began developing romantic feelings. She claimed that Park used those emotions to make specific requests related to the crime. While in detention, Kim reportedly cried, saying she did not know whether the friend outside would wait for her. Her attitude had clearly changed. She also blamed someone else. She blamed the victim, the 8-year-old child, Yang. At first, Kim claimed she remembered nothing. She repeatedly said she did not know her motive. Then, suddenly, she shifted her story, claiming that Yang had come to her home, played with her cat, and mistreated the cat. She said that was why she did what she did. Kim continued to spew nothing but nonsense. This time, after blaming others, she shifted to blaming diminished mental capacity. She claimed that she had schizophrenia, said she heard voices, and even insisted that she had multiple personalities. Whether any of this was true needed to be verified. Kim Tae-kyung, a specialist who frequently appears on the program That's What I Want to Know, went to meet Kim in order to conduct a psychological analysis. Professor Kim Tae-kyung already knew what Kim had done before meeting her. Even so, the moment he first saw her, he was shocked by how calm and ordinary her face looked. They began the psychiatric evaluation, asking various questions to determine whether she had schizophrenia, including in-depth questions about auditory hallucinations. However, Kim was unable to answer these properly. Observing how she subtly changed her statements as the trial progressed, manipulated the narrative, deceived others, and how she had thoroughly cleaned the crime scene after the murder, the experts concluded that she did not have schizophrenia. Then the question arose, what about dissociative identity disorder? In cases of dissociative identity disorder, the different personalities are not aware of one another. But in Kim's case, she openly described when and which personality would appear. This, too, was determined to be a false claim and an act. Her claim of schizophrenia was exposed as false. Her claim of dissociative identity disorder was exposed as false. And then, after running out of excuses, Kim presented her final diagnosis: Asperger's syndrome. It appeared that she had researched extensively. There was even testimony that, while in detention, she diligently read books related to Asperger's syndrome. It was truly frightening. By this point, she had blamed others. She had blamed mental weakness. And now came another claim commonly made by criminals, that the crime was impulsive. But the evidence showed otherwise. Kim had not only committed the crime on that day. For a long time before, she had been sitting in the park every day, watching children and selecting a target. She chose children who lived in the same apartment complex as her victims. Her search history was filled with phrases such as perfect crime, murder without a body, and grotesque killings. On the day of the crime, she even searched on her mobile phone inside a park restroom for the school schedule of the elementary school the victim attended. Investigators also questioned how she knew the structure of the water tank on the rooftop where she disposed of the body. As previously mentioned, the ladder was approximately 5 meters high. According to profilers, this was not a place one could climb on impulse. Even setting all of that aside, the fact that a 16-year-old girl took out her mother's clothes, wore sunglasses, carried a travel bag, sat in a park, and watched children playing already showed an unmistakable level of planning. There were countless elements that clearly revealed just how calculated this crime truly was. In the end, Kim was arrested on charges of abducting and luring a minor and disposing of a body. There were several striking episodes that emerged during the trial process. The victim's mother initially did not want to appear in court. However, after people around her persuaded her that she should stand before the court and ask for strict punishment, she decided to attend. That day was the first time the mother saw Kim. The two stood facing each other at a distance of just 1 meter. As the mother spoke in court, Kim reportedly said, "I'm sorry," and began to sob. But once the mother left the courtroom, Kim's attitude completely changed. After the mother exited, a fellow detainee who had lived with Kim in the detention center came forward to testify. This person said that they had once asked Kim whether she felt sorry toward the victim's parents. Kim responded by asking, "Why should I?" She reportedly said that she had heard that if she received a mental illness diagnosis, her sentence would be around 5 to 10 years, and she even laughed and hummed to herself while saying it. From that day on, she began reading books about Asperger's syndrome. When testimony unfavorable to her began to emerge, Kim, who had been crying and repeatedly saying she was sorry just moments earlier, suddenly began shouting and reacting aggressively. Another statement came from someone who had shared the detention center with her. After hearing what crime Kim had committed, the other detainees reportedly began quietly putting away and hiding the family photos they had displayed, especially pictures of their children. She was a criminal, feared even by other criminals. It is also well known that the prosecutor handled this case with extreme seriousness. In order to fully understand the motive and background of the crime, the prosecutor believed it was necessary to understand the character cafe where Kim and Park had met. For this case, the prosecutor reportedly studied and investigated character cafes so thoroughly that he said he had mastered the subject. Park, meanwhile, assembled an elite legal defense team and continued to insist that she had not participated in the crime and knew nothing about it. During the trial, the prosecutor suddenly asked Park an unexpected question in court, a moment that became widely discussed. "Did you catch it?" The prosecutor asked this out of nowhere. Park responded, "Catch what?" The prosecutor then followed up, saying, "If you suddenly received a message saying, 'I caught it,' just like the one I just asked you about, what would you say?" Park replied, "I would probably ask, 'What is that?'" The prosecutor countered by pointing out that when Kim sent a message saying she had caught it, that she had gone hunting, Park immediately asked whether the victim was still alive. By highlighting this message exchange, the prosecutor directly challenged her claim of ignorance. Kim, seemingly thoughtless even at that point, reportedly said that it was late March and that she felt sad because she could not see the cherry blossoms before they bloomed. However, Kim and Park would not be permanently denied the sight of cherry blossoms. What mattered was how many years they would spend behind bars. At the first trial, Kim was sentenced to 20 years in prison, while Park received a life sentence. This may seem strange at first, since Kim was the one who directly committed the killing. The difference in their sentences was due to age. Under juvenile law at the time, those under 18 years old faced a maximum sentence of 15 years. However, with the application of special aggravated crime laws, the maximum could be extended to 20 years. As a result, Kim received the maximum possible sentence of 20 years. Park, being 19 years old, received a life sentence. At the first trial, the court viewed the two as co-perpetrators. However, in the end, Park's sentence was also significantly reduced, and she received a sentence of 13 years. Kim's sentence remained 20 years in prison, along with 30 years of electronic location tracking. She committed the crime at the age of 16. When she is released, she will be 36 years old, in her mid-30s. 7 years have already passed, so in just over 10 more years, this devil-like individual will be walking the same streets as us, visiting parks and seeing cherry blossoms. Lastly, there was a statement made by the victim Yang's mother in court. This part was especially heartbreaking to hear. She said that her child had left without being able to even close her eyes. She wanted to dress her child in pretty clothes before sending her off on her final journey, but the body was not in a condition where that was possible, so she had to cut the clothes into pieces and dress her child that way. When one thinks about the heart of a mother sending off a child whose body was no longer whole, it is truly painful. In a season just before the cherry blossoms bloomed, a young life that had not yet been able to bloom was taken by a devil-like criminal. While that criminal will not see cherry blossoms for 20 years, it must be remembered that the victim Yang will never be able to see them again. I hope that the perpetrator lives the rest of her life carrying remorse and atonement in her heart. My name is Brian. That concludes today's story. I will return next time with another story. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.